Hey, shalom, shalom, Most High in Christ bless. Welcome to this class called Real Jew Proof for Kanye fans. We're gonna dive into some historical proof because it's been said that the Israelites are speaking unfactual rhetoric that is heresy, and they say Kanye is he's repeating those things, yeah, with no proof. He's just spewing it out of his mouth. So we could go to some scriptures and some historical books to see if what Kanye is saying is true for his fans. And even if you're not a fan of Kanye, maybe you can glean something from this, from Real Jew Proof for Kanye fans. Give me that in 2 Timothy chapter 2, and let's read verse 15.
2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15.
Call it again for him.
2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15.
Yep.
Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
Rightly dividing the word of truth. Is that it on that?
Yes, sir.
So you gotta study to show yourself approved so you're able to rightly divide the word of truth, because without studying the word, what you will do is you will base your opinions on emotions. It won't be based on facts. It will all be based on emotions because you have not actually studied the word to show yourself approved to God. I almost forgot too. I got to my right over here, I've got who we got?
Officer Pagiel.
Got Officer Pagiel, and to my left,
Officer Azaniah.
you got Officer Azaniah. Okay, all right. So they here with me. But if you do not study to show yourself approved, your opinions will be based on emotion and not facts, right? And you'll be swayed by society and by media, depending on what era you grew up in or where you live at on the planet. So you got to study the word of God to make sure what you are speaking and what you are saying on behalf of God is factual. Give me that in Job chapter 8, verse 8. Job chapter 8, verse 8.
The book of Job, chapter 8 and verse 8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers.
So the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we have to search. Basically, that's the root word of what? Research. We have to research our history. Why? Because of the history that has plagued us as a people, which is known as slavery. In slavery, where we was oppressed and not able to read, our history was fed to us. We were made to believe things that were not actually factual. Things like black people, you're Africans, you're 3/5 of a man, or you are inferior to all races, you're the cursed people of Ham. All of these things were fed to us in history. Our true history has been suppressed and it's been hidden by the powers that be. But God is doing a marvelous thing in these last days where he is now opening up the floodgates of our history to us, making it easily accessible and at our fingertips just by going on YouTube and watching this video or Google it or actually reading the Bible yourself. Hell, it's on your phone. But we have to do the research ourselves as a people because our true history has been suppressed. Give me that in Psalms 83. Watch this. Psalms chapter 83, and I want you to start. We'll start at verse 1 on this.
Psalms chapter 83 and verse 1. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
So everybody does not love God. He has enemies upon the earth. That's what David is saying in the spirit. God has enemies, and those that hate him have lifted up their head against them as in a proud stance, like we have overcome you. We have defied you. They lifted up their head against God. And how did they do that, though? Keep reading.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people.
When you research your history, when you research your history, you're going to find out that there has been a group of people upon the earth that has taken crafty counsel against the people of God because they could not reach him. So they took crafty counsel against his people, and they've been doing it for centuries. This ain't new, nothing new on the earth. When David was saying this, he was prophesying of when the kingdom would fall, of how things would be of the chosen people of God. Give me that in Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 26. Let's read that real quick and see what it say.
Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 26.
Let me see. Go ahead.
I said, I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men.
So how was the crafty counsel taking place? It was to the remembrance of us has ceased from the earth. The true knowledge of who the blacks and Hispanics and Native Indians are on the earth, it has been hidden. It has ceased from the earth. It's no longer there. You don't recognize us as a people. The real Jews' remembrance is gone from the earth. But you got to ask yourself, if God said he would make the remembrance of them to cease from among man, how would that come about to play out on the earth? How would that happen? God didn't just snap his fingers and make everybody forget like Spider-Man No Way Home. That ain't how it went down. It was a series of things that happened to make the remembrance of God's people to cease from the earth. Give me that in 2 Maccabees. We're going to go into it. 2 Maccabees chapter 6, and I want you to read verse 6.
2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 6. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts.
So this is during the times of the Greeks. This is 333 BC and on down to where we are today. Read on.
Or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
So how did the remembrance of man, of the Israelites, begin to cease from the earth? When the white man came into power, known as the Greeks, he stopped letting the Israelites, the real Jews, call themselves Jews. They could no longer call themselves that. They had to be known as what? Ephesians, Corinthians, Romans, Philippians. They had to go by these things because what would happen? Let's jump down to verse 8.
Verse 8. Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy.
A Greek king. Go ahead.
Against the Jews.
Against the Jews.
That they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices.
So this is how the remembrance of the real Jews ceased from the earth. This is how they consulted together. Don't let them call themselves Jews anymore, and they have to partake in the same way of living that we do. So what does that mean? That means that the real Jews had to start worshiping Zeus, Athena, Diana, Wonder Woman. They had to start doing those things. Oh, because if they did not, what would happen? Keep reading.
And whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles should be put to death.
If they did not assimilate to the ways of the Greeks, which later became the Romans, we all know the history of the Greco-Roman era, they were put to death. Keep reading.
Then might a man have seen the present misery.
Now let's go back chapter, 1 Maccabees chapter 1. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and let's read verse 41 now.
1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom.
Another Greek king. He wrote to his whole kingdom. The Greeks ruled all of the eastern known world during their time. Read on.
That all should be one people.
The decree was that they should what?
Be one
what is America's Pledge of Allegiance? I remember it like it was yesterday when they made us stand up, put our hands over our heart, and they said, one nation, under God, indivisible. What did that mean? Indivisible. That means that you would be one people with the ways of America. And we all know the Americans are the descendants of the Romans and the Greeks. As Kanye fans, I expect you to have a little bit of knowledge because you have followed the guy that had albums called what? College Dropout, Graduation, Late Registration. So I expect you to have a little bit of historical sense. We all know that when it says one nation under God, indivisible, that means that they are telling you to be one people just like the Greeks did. Let's read that again.
Verse 42. And everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
Everyone should leave his laws means that everyone should leave their way of life and follow after the customs of the Greeks. Read on.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion.
They consented to his way of life. Their names began to be forgotten. They began to be hidden in the earth. Keep reading.
And sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
Read on.
And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
These are the ways and the customs of the Gentiles, of the heathen, of the Greeks that we're reading right now, that they made the Israelites, the real Jews, do these things. Keep reading.
That they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
Read on.
To the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances.
That was the plan of making them follow after the ways of the Greeks, is that they would forget their own way of life and worship them and follow after their ways, that they would all be one people, indivisible, up under this Greek kingdom. Read verse 50.
Verse 50. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die.
Who did not forsake their ways and take on the customs of the Greeks, of the Caucasian Greeks, whoever did not assimilate, they would die. That's how the name of the Israelites began to cease from being a part of the earth. What would you do if you had a sword to your neck, an arrow to your back? You would assimilate if you didn't have the heart to stand up for your God. We read that many of the Israelites consented to the ways, just like many of the people consent to the ways of America when they know they are not right, but they say everybody else is doing it. Go ahead.
You know how that plays onto today? Many of the stars consent to going back to calling themselves African American the moment that they try to claim that they are the Israelites, they are Jews.
Right.
They consent to that.
Yep.
And just to land back off of you, that what we're reading about is that one world order. Mm-hmm. That one world order falls under Christianity.
Yeah.
Christianity is one of the biggest religions in the world. No matter where you go, you're gonna find a Christian.
Yep. And that's how they keep all people as one people and following after their ways. Let's prove it. So, look, give me that book, Babylon the Timbuktu, because we read it in the Bible historically. So let's see what the history books say. Let's pull up Babylon the Timbuktu. All right. So that's the book from Babylon the Timbuktu by Rudolph R. Windsor. Let's see what it says in this historical scholarly book. Go ahead. Let's read that.
Like the black Jews in America.
Like the who?
Like the black Jews in America.
We're going to address that black Jew statement in a little while. Go ahead.
Some of the Jews in Guinea don't remember their original nationality.
It's Guyana.
This deplorable ignorance is attributed
Guinea. Go ahead.
Is attributed to various causes. The fall of the Hebrew kingdoms.
So the kingdoms fail. Go ahead.
The lack of communication with Jewish educational centers. Intense persecution. And the deliberate blotting out of the mind their true nationality.
Just so they could survive, they could live in peace without threat of death. Go ahead.
Thus, Nahum Schloss said this about the Islamized Jews he met.
The Islamized who?
The Islamized Jews he met.
How are you a Jew but you Islam? You do that because you were suffering persecution from the Arabs during that time. Go ahead.
In most cases, these Hebrews by race and Mussulman, by faith seek to hide their origin, which has become a burden to them. In another example, the persecution of the black Jews in Portugal was so ruthless and frequent that Cecil Roth tells us the Jews did not divulge to their children the secret of their religion until they had attained the age of reason.
Now, you never knew it was Jews in Portugal that were considered black. He has to say black Jews because when the common person thinks of the name Jew, they automatically picture someone that is not like them. Go ahead.
The Hebrew religion is such that if you deny your religion,
if you deny who you are, your laws, go ahead,
you will eventually deny your nationality.
Because they are one and the same, because the laws were only given to the Israelites. If you do not keep the laws of the Israelites, you begin to live like the Greeks, the Romans, the Americans. Keep going.
The sociologists and psychologists know.
The council the crafty council is the sociologists and the psychologists. Go ahead.
And history has proven that if you deny your culture and nationality over a long period of time, you will totally forget it through a process of assimilation.
A process of assimilation is how the name of the name of the Israelites and the identity of the real Jews has been forgotten upon the earth through assimilation. We have assimilated to wherever we are on the earth. We have assimilated to the ways of America. We have assimilated to the ways of the Japanese, the Chinese, the Arabs, the French, the Great Britain, would you call it, right? We have assimilated to those ways. No matter where we have been persecuted, we assimilated. Give me the other book, Sex and Race. Watch this. Because we just got one book. We got more books. This is Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers, another scholar. Go ahead.
The Negroes are so Americanized that were it not for their color, one would forget that they ever came from Africa.
Read that again.
The Negroes are so Americanized that were it not for their color, one would forget that they ever came from Africa.
That's how Americanized, that's how assimilated that we are as a people. That's how the name of Israel will be put out of the earth. Let's go back to Psalms chapter 83 again. We give you a real Jew proof right here. Psalms 83, let's read 3 and 4.
Psalms chapter 83 and verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones.
Against thy hidden ones. How we've been hid? We was no longer able to call ourselves Jew. We had to call ourselves by the names that our oppressors gave us, like Haitian, African American, Jamaican, Guatemalan, Mexican, Peruvian, Puerto Rican, a Native American. Those are oppressors' names that have hid the real Jews amongst the masses of the people in plain sight. Verse 4.
They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation.
So how have they cut us off in modern times? Because we just read historically in ancient times how they began to cut the Jews off. They made them sacrifice and worship their gods and eat the same foods and not circumcise their kids, and they could not keep the laws of God. So how did they do that in modern times? I'll tell you how. You're a Baptist. You're a Seventh-day Adventist. You're a Jehovah's Witness. Hispanics are Catholics. Native Indians don't even believe in the Bible. They want nothing to do with the Bible. How is what it says? They have cut us off from being a nation. You're blood. He's a Crip. This is his block. This is my block. I'm Democrat. I'm Republican. I am gender fluid. I am bisexual. They have cut us off from being a nation through many different means, but it all for one point. Read on in that.
That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
That the name of Israel, that the real Jews will no longer be able to be identified. You won't know who they are. It will be up for grabs. It will be a debate. It will be anti-Semitic to say that those people are the Jews. But I thought it was freedom of religion. I guess not when you're talking about the real Jews. Go ahead.
And to back up your point even more, when you think about the people on the planet, right, planet Earth, only one nation of people doesn't carry their own names from last name to first name. Mm-hmm. You don't see the Caucasian race calling themselves with black people names.
Nah.
You don't see the Chinese doing that. You only see the blacks and Hispanics carrying other nations' name who took them captive.
You see black people named McGruger, McIntosh, Johnson, Smith, Saint Pierre. Go ahead.
Saint Pierre, Rodrigo. And then when you was reading that Psalms chapter 83, the crafty counsel, there's different layers to the crafty counsel that they have given. Like, let's just say, for instance, you want to find out your roots, right? What's the natural thing that somebody would think of? Go to DNAtest.com and they layer it by calling you African names, which doesn't have nothing to do with your identity.
Right.
Or when you go ahead and you go into religion, you're trying to search out God, the crafty counsel to keep you hidden from your true identity and your true God, they give you a white God.
There you go. Exactly right. So, and you know what else we have forgotten, where we have been cut off and our name is no longer in remembrance? We even forgot that we were Semitic. We forgot that we were Semitic people. We have no idea of that. Watch this, y'all. Because this is real Jew proof for Kanye fans. Pull up the image of Abba Eben. Pull up the first one that we got up there. So that's Abba Eben, right? Now, Abba stands for Father Eben. Let's pull up the article of what Abba Eben looks like. Oh, scroll that down. Abba Eben. Okay, so we see what Abba Solomon Meir Eben looks like. I want you to scroll down a little bit and go to early life right there. Go ahead and read that early life.
Eben was born in Cape Town, South Africa on February 2nd, 1915 to Lithuanian Jewish parents.
He was born to Lithuanian Jewish parents. So he is a what you would call Jewish. Both his parents were Jewish, right? Okay, so let's go to the book that Abba Eben wrote. Let's pull it up. Read that. What's it called?
Heritage, Civilization, and the Jews.
So Abba Eben, born to Jewish parents, wrote a book called Civilization and the Jews. So let's see what these Semitic people look like that Abba Eben, who we clearly just saw what he looks like. Let's see what the Semitic people look like in the Civilization and the Jews. Let's see. Oh.
Wait a minute.
Those look like brown, what you would call black people today. They look nothing like Jewish people. They look nothing like Abba Eben, who was born to Jewish parents. And let's see what that, read up underneath of that, what it says.
The expulsion of the Hyksos may have marked the end of Hebrew power in Egypt and the beginning of the descent into bondage. Here, a Semite.
A what?
A Semite humbles himself in an Egyptian tomb painting.
A Semite. A brown, what you would call black Semite. Look like Kanye. Okay. Go ahead. What you going to say?
And you know what's crazy? It shows you how the Egyptians, like the same skin color as the Hebrews.
Yeah.
So therefore, if anybody like to say the Egyptians were black, therefore you have to confirm that the Hebrews also are black.
Right. We're gonna get some more in that. Go to the other image. There should be another one. Okay. Let's see what those people, who they are. Let's read that on the side.
And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage. Exodus chapter 1 and verse 13 to 14. Semitic captives.
Semitic captives are what?
Are shown in this ancient Egyptian painting.
Semitics that are brown, what you call black today. So how is it that if so-called black people saying they are Semitic is anti-Semitism when we see black Semitics in the book that a Jewish man wrote? How is that? They are trying to cut you off from being a nation, that the remembrance of the real Jews is no more on the earth. Go to the book Pyramid Builders. Pull it up. So it says here, the pyramid builders of ancient Egypt. I wonder who built the pyramids. It says a modern investigation of Pharaoh's workforce. Okay, let's go to Exodus chapter 1, verse 13. Let's see. Pharaoh's workforce. Go ahead. What you say?
I said things that makes you go,
Real Jew proof.
Damn.
Exodus 1, verse 13.
Exodus chapter 1 and verse 13. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor.
Read verse 13 again so we can see who Pharaoh's workforce was. Read that again. Pull up the image one more time.
Verse 13. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor.
So right now, you are looking at Pharaoh's workforce on the pyramid builders of ancient Egypt, known as Israelites. When you read Exodus chapter 1, verse 13, you are reading about black people called Israelites in Exodus.
Hey, Cap, you know what's crazy with that book cover?
Yeah.
A lot of times, going back to the crafty council that the name of Israel be no more, when they're trying to say who built the pyramids, they always say, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know who built the pyramids.
Right.
We don't know how it got there. It was ancient aliens. It was It was somebody else.
Yeah, you're right, on Discovery Channel. Ancient aliens built it. Well, they are making books of Pharaoh's workforce out here. And they look brown, what you would call black people today. And the Bible called them Israelites. Got something?
And you know the craftiness about it is that they don't even know how they structured and built the pyramids. And we come to find out the workforce of the Egyptians were black. Right. So that means black people are smarter than the modern day Caucasians.
Oh, yeah.
With their military force.
But in order to cut them off from being a nation, you would give them names of where they cannot identify, where their real godly minds would never come into existence. they would act like African American Negroes. Give me that book that we got up there, Near Eastern Mythology. We're going to keep giving you proof. Read that for him.
Near Eastern Mythology, Mesopotamia, Syria, and Palestine by John Gray.
Now look at this. Go to the image that's in that book. Doesn't that image look exactly what we just saw on the pyramid?
Same thing.
The pyramid builders, Pharaoh's workforce, right? Now I want you to zoom in on the underlined stuff at the top. It's the same exact image. Let's see what they call those people in the image below.
It depicts,
hold on. Read it. Read the whole thing.
Below.
So the picture that's underneath that. Go ahead.
Mural painting from the tomb of Reckmeyer.
The tomb of Reckmeyer is giving you the actual location of it. What time frame was it?
15th century BC.
15th century BC. This is old. Read on.
Near Thebes in Upper Egypt. It depicts displaced persons.
Displaced persons is another word for outcast. Go ahead.
Kabiru. Egyptian.
Apiru.
Hence Hebrews.
Hebrews, right?
As state slaves.
The workforce. Keep going.
Molding bricks.
Well, we just read that in Exodus, making bricks. Go ahead.
For public works.
Uh-huh.
It was from this class that Moses led a group out of Egypt, which became Israel.
Which who?
Became Israel.
Uh-huh.
After the covenant experience at the holy mountain in Sinai.
So the same image that would just show the pyramid builders, but scroll down some more, scroll down on that. It said Pharaoh's workforce, it called them the Israelites. Where do you see Jewish in Pharaoh's workforce?
There is none.
There ain't none. They call them Hebrews, which are Semites, which are the Israelites, which built up Pharaoh's treasured cities and public works. They called them state slaves. Go to the other book that we got. Go back to the other book. Keep it up there. Come on. Our Living Bible. Go ahead, read that. Go back one. Yeah, read that for him.
Our Living Bible. Old Testament text by Michael Aviona. New Testament text by Emil.
Hold on, what's the names on that?
Michael Aviona.
Oh, now those are Jewish names. Go ahead.
New Testament text by Emil G. Kraling.
That's a Jewish name, Kraling. Okay, so it's a Jewish people that wrote this book as well. Go ahead. So hold on. That's the same image that we just saw on Pharaoh's workforce in ancient Egypt. It's the same image that we saw in Near Eastern mythology. The same exact image. Now, read what it says, where it came from, where the red lines are. Zoom in some for them. Scroll down. There we go.
Painting from Tomb of Reckmeyer.
That other book, the Near Eastern mythology, said the same thing. So now we've got facts. We've got proof. This is fact checking. This is in multiple books of where that particular image came from of brown, what you call black today, Semites known as Israelites. Read.
15th century BC.
Uh-huh.
The new ruler began a systematic oppression of the Israelites.
Of the who?
Of the Israelites.
So we are looking at the Israelites build up Egypt. Go ahead.
They were conscripted as laborers and set to work on great construction schemes under the lash of Egyptian taskmasters, to whom their own foremen, the officers of the children of Israel, were responsible.
Now jump down to the other underlying area.
But as far as possible, foreign slaves and prisoners of war were used for this back-breaking work. Thus, in the tomb of Reckmeyer, the vizier of Thutmosis III, 15th century BC, we find lighter-skinned Semites.
Hold on, who?
Lighter-skinned Semites.
Oh! Keep reading.
Among the workmen making bricks for the restoration of the temple of Ammon at Thebes.
Scroll up some. So what are we looking at right here? We are looking at different shades of Israelites We have always come in the different shades of brown since the creation of us on earth. We are not just all dark skinned. Some of us are light skinned. Some of us are brown skinned. But we are Semites. We are the Israelites. Because I still don't see Abba Eben in any of those images. Let's go to Exodus chapter 1. Let's read Exodus chapter 1 and let's read. Is that what I want? Exodus chapter 1. Bear with me here a second. Exodus chapter 2. Let's read verse 5.
Exodus chapter 2 and verse 5.
Uh-huh.
And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, and she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children.
This is one of the Hebrews' children. We just saw what the Hebrews, what the Israelites look like. Different shades of brown, known as Semites in their history books. Okay, jump down to verse 10.
Verse 10. And the child grew.
Hold on, is that what? No, let me see. Let me make sure. Yep, verse 10.
Verse 10. And the child grew, and she brought him in unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water.
Now we are reading about Moses right now, right? Jump over to verse 16.
Verse 16. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them.
Moses stood up and helped. Go ahead.
And watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, how is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, an Egyptian.
Who?
An Egyptian. Delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock.
So when they saw Moses, an Israelite, Hebrew, Semite, they thought he was an Egyptian. Well, I wonder why. Because we just saw what the Israelites look like. They look just like the ancient Egyptians. Now, give me that in Exodus chapter 4. You got something? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Remember what that scripture you just brought out, how they saw Moses and they thought he was an Egyptian. It goes right back to that book you brought out, how they said when you looked at the Negroes, because in captivity, if it wasn't for their skin, they would look just like Americans.
Right.
And Moses was
amongst the Egyptians. Yep, exactly right. Give me that Exodus chapter 4, read verse 6.
Exodus chapter 4 and verse 6. And the Lord said furthermore unto him, put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, put thine hand
Hold on. He said his hand was leprous as snow. Can you pull up the image of the leprous hand? Okay. We see a leprous hand right there. So remember, we just showed you all the images of Israelites in Egypt. Building up is, we went through multiple books to show you the color of the Israelites. So you know what Moses looked like, right? So he said, put your hand into your shirt, and it became leprous, white as snow, means void of color. So when Moses put his hand into his shirt, it looked like that when he brought it back out. Now, keep that up and read verse 7.
Verse 7. And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
Show the other image. So it turned back into that. Go back one. Now go back again. This is what you read it in Exodus chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. We've got historical proof that Moses was this color because we just seen images of all of his brothers building up Israel. And they were the same color as black people today. different shades of brown. And we ain't going to play stupid because we know what color the ancient Egyptians were. We all know that. Give me that in Acts chapter 1. Acts chapter 21. Acts 21, and I want you to read verse 37.
Acts chapter 21 and verse 37. And as Paul was to be led into the castle.
Who are we speaking about now?
And as Paul was to be
disciple Paul, right? That was called by Jesus the Christ. Most of the New Testament is written by Paul. So let's see what he looked like. Go ahead.
He said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek?
Can you speak the language of us in Rome, of us Caucasians, us white folks? Go ahead.
Art not thou that Egyptian?
Hold on. Paul was a what?
That Egyptian.
They thought Paul looked like an Egyptian. Hey, Egyptians, those dark-skinned people, don't speak the same language that we do. Can you speak our language as an Egyptian? Let's see what Paul says. Keep reading.
Which before these days made us an uproar and led us out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers. But Paul said, I am a man.
Paul said, I am a man.
Which am a Jew.
Paul said, I'm a Jew. I'm an Israelite. Don't mistake me for those other dark-skinned Africans. I'm an Israelite. I'm a Jew. And you read, and give me that. I don't have this, but let's go to Romans real quick. So he says, I'm a Jew. Let's get detail on what type of he was. Romans chapter 11. Let's read verse 1.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 1. I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite.
He's an Israelite.
Of the seed of Abraham. Of the tribe of Benjamin.
So when we reading in Acts 21 and 37, we're reading about a brown Jew mistaken as an Egyptian. Just like Moses was mistaken as a brown Egyptian. Let's pull up the icon, the book Icon. So this is a book called The Icon. These are the things where we say you have to study to show yourself approved, or your opinions will be based on emotions and not facts. This is a icon book from the Byzantine Empire. Read that if you can on the bottom for him, officer.
The Byzantine tradition in Europe, Russia, and the Near East through 7 major epochs.
Woo! Through Europe, Russia, and 7 Near epochs. So let's see what Moses looked like in this book in Europe, Russia, and 7 Near epochs. Let's see what Moses. Whoa. That can't be Moses. Well, it makes sense that they thought he was an Egyptian. It makes sense that he was raised in the house of Pharaoh because he was black, just like his people, the Israelites, that were building up Egypt. Give me that in Matthew chapter 2, verse 13. So that's Moses in the book, The Icon, with the burning bush and the law in his hand, dressed in his priestly garments. Read that in Matthew 2:13. You can take it down.
Matthew chapter 2 and verse 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt.
Flee into Egypt, where those dark-skinned people are. Read.
And be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him.
So it makes perfect sense of why the angel told Joseph and Mary to flee into Egypt with Jesus among other black, brown people, because Christ was black, just like Moses, just like Paul. Check this out. Deuteronomy 18, verse 18.
Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 18.
Look what God told Moses about Christ in the Old Testament. Let's read that.
I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee.
Like what?
Like unto thee.
Uh-huh.
And will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command.
So it says he will be like unto thee, Moses. What's that mean? He's going to look just like you, Moses. He's going to look just like his people, Moses. He's going to be in Egypt just like you was, Moses. And he's going to speak just like you did, Moses. What did Christ teach when he was on the earth? The commandments of God. Let's prove it real quick. John chapter 5, because we read where he went into Egypt as a child. Moses was in Egypt just like a child. We read that Moses was mistaken for an Egyptian. We read that Christ went into Egypt to hide from Herod, from a Roman, a white man, amongst other dark-skinned people in Egypt. So let's see what Christ spoke, if it was the same as Moses, just like it said in Deuteronomy 18, he's going to be like you, Moses. John 5 and 45.
John chapter 5 and verse 45. Do not think that I will accuse you to the Father. There is one that accuseth you, even Moses, in whom ye trust. For had ye believed Moses,
if you believe Moses,
ye would have believed me.
You would have believed Christ. Read on.
For he wrote of me.
That was in Deuteronomy 18:18. He wrote about Christ. Now read on.
But if ye believe not his writings.
Hold on. If you don't believe Moses' writings, what was Moses' writings? The laws of God. He gave the laws. That's why in religion today, in Christianity, they say what? The law of Moses. So if you do not believe his writings, Christ said what?
How shall ye believe my words?
Why would he say that? Because he spoke the same words that Moses spoke. Christ, God showed Moses that I'm going to raise up Christ. He's going to be just like you. He's going to look like you. He's going to speak like you. We're not talking about exact twins and things. We're talking about being black, dark skin, woolly hair, mistaken for an Egyptian.
Yeah,
Go
exactly. Because when people look at black people, whether they want to say it or not, they like to say we all look alike.
Right.
They like to say that.
Yep. Because Moses was from what? The tribe of Levi. Christ was from the tribe of Judah. But they all looked the same because they was all black, brown people of what you call black today. Now, let's go to the other books. Let's go back to the book, Our Living Bible. Our Living Bible, we just pulled this up. Let's go. So we see brown people again right here. Let's zoom in on the top and see who these people are out of this Jewish book. Let's see who these brown black people are. Read that.
Thus, the Israelite priests were dressed in white.
Hold on.
linen.
Those people are who?
Israelite priests.
Just like Moses was a Israelite priest. Moses looked just like those Israelites right there. And let's scroll down some and see where this image come from. Because they made the books. They did the history. Wow, them some black burnt in the furnace feet. Read that for us, where that come from.
Priests on a fresco from Dura Europus.
In Dura Europus, in Europe. Women, read.
3rd century AD.
200s. In the years 200 something AD, they had painted images of Israelite priests that look just like Moses in the icon. Let's see their face one more time, because this is real Jew proof for Kanye fans. Those are Israelite, scroll up some so they can see the words a little bit. Those are Israelite priests dressed in white linen. Let's go to the other book, Sex and Race. Oh, that's another image. Okay, zoom in on that. Let's look at these Israelites here. Their hair looks just like the style of many black people today in braids, in dreads of what they call them today, with beaded beards on their face. Nappy beards is what that's represented. But let's see when that is, because that's etched in stone. That's not even a painting. What time frame was that these brown people, what you call black today, are being escorted out?
Deportees on relief from palace
of Ashurbanipal.
Ashurbanipal
Yep.
at Nineveh, 7th
At
century
who?
BC.
At Nineveh,
7th century BC.
7th century BC. 7th century BC, there was engravings in walls of what the Israelites looked like. I've never seen a Jewish person looking like that. You got something, officer? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So just to add a little context to what we're reading is pretty much, remember, whenever we sit there and we read a book, what do they tell us? Who, what, when, where, how.
Yeah.
So what's the when? Like, even if we were to not pull up all these images, what's the when? Where is a lot of this stuff happening? It's happening in Jerusalem, in Israel. And when you look at Israel, it's in where? Northeast Africa.
Right.
Close to Egypt.
Yep.
So that means what? During that time, we all know that life came from Africa. And because life came from Africa, the first people that came out was the black man, right? Mm-hmm. So even when we were looking at the where, it would tell us that the people that they're speaking about is black people.
Right.
But that's the crafty counsel that they taking, where they taking color out of your mind and taking
now they're olive.
Yeah, they're olive color.
They're green.
They're green now.
Green,
they're incredible.
Brown or black. And they're never brown or black. They're always they're just
opaque.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get more. Go to the book of Sex and Race. Read that.
Sex and race. Negro, Caucasian mixing in all ages and all lands.
By J.A. Rogers. This is another scholar. Go ahead. Let's see what it says about Jews. But the what?
But the earliest Jews were in all probability.
In all probability.
Negroes.
Who?
Negroes.
Oh, wow. The earliest Jews was Negroes. Well, dang, we just seen a relief and pictures from 200, 300 AD, 700 or 7th century BC, Egypt. It said they all probability Negroes. Go ahead.
Abraham, their ancestor, is said to have come from Chaldea.
That's the ancient Chaldeans and the ancient.
And the ancient Chaldeans were black.
That the ancient Chaldeans is referring to Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon. Let's go to the other image. Let's read it.
It is even possible that the Jews originated not in Asia, but in Africa.
What officer just said you was talking about all life started where? In Africa. This is in a history book that the Jews originated not in Asia. Asia meaning what? Europe. Asia Minor is what it's talking about, because Asia is in Europe. It's on the continent of Europe. He's saying that the Jews did not originate from Europe, but in Africa. Read on.
Gerald Massey.
You can look him up. That's a white man. Go ahead.
Has advanced considerable argument in proof of that theory.
A white man said he has proof that the Negroes are the Jews that originated in Africa. Wow.
And you know what's crazy about that, Cap?
Yeah.
Edomites, whenever they speak about their history, they always say civilization started with the Greeks.
Oh, right.
They never go past that.
Nope.
Like before that. So
Nope.
if they claim we are the Jews, if that's what they're saying, they should have been started with this saying, this is where we started.
Yep.
They don't do that. There's a reason.
Mm-hmm. They don't want you to know. They want to cut you off from knowing that you are the real Jew with proof. Give me that the Jews book. We pulling books for you. Undeniable proof. Go ahead.
The Jews, a study of race and environment by Maurice Fishburne.
Go ahead. Next page.
These fair-haired Jews created a problem for anthropologists.
So it says fair hair. That means blonde hair, light hair. Go ahead.
It is a question whence these Indo-Germanic Jews, as Virchow called them, have found their way into the midst of a dark complexioned race like the Jews.
Hold on. They said that the Jews were a what?
A dark complexioned race like the Jews.
It says, how did these white people from Germany find their way into being known as a Jew when the Jews have always been known in the annals of history as dark complexion race people? They put it in their own books that they are dark. Why ain't that anti-Semitic? Okay, so what happened? Let's see. Let me see if I got anything else on that. Okay, pull up images of what it says with the war in Israel. Oh, okay, yeah.
It is stated that the Falashas are not
the Falashas is what it's called. Go ahead.
Are not the only Jews of Negro race.
Because everybody knows that there's a people named known as the Falasha Jews on the west coast of Africa that even Jewish people of Israel have recognized as Jews. They're in the west coast of Africa. Read on.
Bastian speaks of Negro Jews living on the Luango coast in Western Africa.
Hold on, he speaks of Negro Jews living on the Luango coast in Western Africa. Go ahead.
They are called there Movambo or Judeos.
They are called on the west. What's going on with the mic? Check. It says they are called there Movambo or Judeos. Jews. Let's go to the other images. So let's read that. What this now he was the president of Egypt. He's an Arab because they have taken over Egypt. But let's see what he says. He knows a little history.
They left black, the war for Israel. When he was asked about peace in the Middle East, the late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, stated, the Jews will never be able to live here in peace because they left here black, but came back white.
Wow. Go to the other image of him. So that's an actual image of him. Go ahead, read that, the Europeans.
The Europeans claiming to be Jews are nothing more than Hebrew-speaking Gentiles. The late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, stated on television, you, the Jews, will never be able to live here in peace because you left here black but came back white. We cannot accept you.
When was that said?
1952.
Negroes don't read no more. We don't search out. We've been cut off from who we are. But what happened? So what happened to the real Jews then? If all these history books is saying this, and you've got people in earlier times saying, no, you left here black and came back white. Y'all not the people that we remember or we've learned about that was Pharaoh's workforce. You're not those same people. Let's see what happened to them. Deuteronomy 28. Let's read 15. Verse 15. We're going to jump around through this real quick.
Deuteronomy 28 and verse 15.
Uh-huh.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
So God is telling the Israelites, if you do not listen to the voice of God, go ahead.
To observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day.
So the requirement, the covenant was to do all the commandments, not man-made religions that have been given to them in slavery and worshiping idols. It was to do the commandments of God. That's the covenant. Read on.
That all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So all these curses. Let's see some of these curses. Jump over to verse 32.
Verse 32.
Just read normal, man.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand.
Read it again. Just read it slow, man. You read too fast.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
So the son, one of the curses is that the sons and daughters would be given to another people. Jump to verse 41 and let's see how they were given to another people. In what manner were they given away? Go ahead.
Verse 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters.
It's talking about the children again. Go ahead.
But thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
The sons and daughters of the Israelites were given away by the means of slavery. That's one of the curses that happened to the real Jews. Their kids were given away in slavery, captivity. Let's go over to verse 68.
Verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
Now we read earlier what the occupation of the Israelites were in Egypt. We saw the history books and the paintings from the tomb of Rekhmire that they were Pharaoh's workforce and state slaves. So when God said, I will curse you and bring you into Egypt again, he is talking about bringing you back into bondage, into slavery. Get that in Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 6 to prove what we are saying, because we've got the history books, but what matters most is the word of God when you're proving who the real Jews are. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 6. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt.
He brought them out of slavery in Egypt, and God referred to it as what?
From the house of bondage.
God called that place Egypt a house of bondage because the Israelites were Pharaoh's workforce. They built up the pyramids. They built up the treasured cities, the valley of the kings. They were doing that hard bondage labor in Egypt. They were slaves. Go back to Deuteronomy 28:68.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
Back to slavery, but this time how?
With ships.
But you're going into a slavery on ships, not the physical landmass, but this time your slavery will be by ships. Go ahead.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
You won't see the physical landmass of Egypt again. You will be sent into slavery on ships in other places. Go ahead.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
You will be sold as slaves to your enemies once you got off the ship. Go ahead.
For bondmen,
slave man,
and bond women,
slave women,
and no man shall buy you.
Buy you means to redeem you out of that servitude, because the Israelites had a law where you could redeem your brother out of servitude if they were ever put into that position. God said, this slavery, you will not be able to get out of it. You will be in it as long as you stay in sin, rebelling against the commandments. More proof. Jump over to verse 48.
Verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
That you were sold to once you got off the slave ships. Go ahead.
Which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger.
You want food, you will serve your enemies.
And in thirst.
You want something to drink, you will serve your enemies.
And in nakedness.
If you want clothes, you will have to serve your enemies. Go ahead.
And in want of all things.
If you want to have a contract with Adidas and make Yeezys, you would have to bow down and serve your enemies. Do what they tell you to do. Say what they want you to say. Keep reading.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
He will put chains upon your necks when you're on the ship, off the ships, all through the lands, transporting you. You will serve him and he will have chains on your neck. Read on.
Until he have destroyed thee.
Jump over to verse 16. We're still talking about what happened to the real Jews. Read on.
Verse 16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city.
Cursed will you be in the city. Go ahead.
And cursed shalt thou be in the field.
Cotton fields, the sugar cane fields, the tobacco fields. Cursed in Chicago, cursed in LA, cursed in Miami, cursed in Mississippi, cursed in Alabama, cursed in China, cursed in Nigeria. No matter where we are as a people, if you want to know who the real Jews are, look for the oppressed people in the lands, no matter where they are. Those are the real Jews. Let's go to Luke chapter 21, because Christ spoke on what would happen to the real Jews. Luke 21, let's read verse 20 through 24.
Luke chapter 21 and verse 20.
And
when you shall see Jerusalem compact with armies, then know then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto.
For what reason?
For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled.
Those things that are written in Deuteronomy 28, you going into slavery on ships, sold to enemies, chains about your neck, cursed in the cities, serve your enemies for food. It's time for all of those things to be fulfilled, and they will be fulfilled when you are ran out of Jerusalem. Go ahead.
Verse 23.
Yeah.
But
woe, jump down to verse 24.
Verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
The Israelites, the Jews.
And shall be led away captive into all nations.
Into where?
All nations.
Into all nations they will be led away. Keep reading.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Christ is prophesying that the real Jews will be led away into slavery into all nations. Sounds just like the 1619 slave trade. Sounds just like the 1492 conquest of America. Sounds just like the sub-Sahara slave trade. Sounds just like that, being led away into all nations. And then when the real Jews are gone out of Israel, Jerusalem, then a Gentile nation would move in and call themselves Israelis. That's what that guy Nasir Abdul said. You left here black and you came back white. Christ is backing that up. He's saying when the real Jews are led away captive, Gentiles will move in and call themselves Israelites, call themselves the people of God. Palestinians and Israelis. Now, let's go to the book Light and Truth. Let's see if the historical books back up what Jesus the Christ just said. Go ahead.
Light and Truth.
Go back to it. Yeah.
The Bible and Ancient and Modern History.
Bible and Ancient and Modern History. Go ahead.
Containing the universal history.
Go ahead. Next. This is page 352 of this book. Go ahead. Let's start from the underline.
But they obeyed not the word of the Lord by the mouth of the prophet.
We just read that in what? In Deuteronomy 28. They obeyed not the word of the mouth of the Lord. Go ahead.
And were led away, young and old, naked and barefoot.
Led away, keep reading.
Into captivity.
We just read that in Deuteronomy 28:41. They were led away into captivity. Go ahead.
As they were black.
As they were black, the Israelites that were led away into captivity. Watch this. Keep reading.
So was he. As he was naked, so were they. Led naked and barefoot, young and old, into captivity. Even unto this day.
Even unto this day.
From Africa.
From where?
From Africa. Their descendants are led away by a wicked people into slavery.
That's their history books. The Jews are led away into captivity from Africa, not from Poland, not from damn Netherlands, not where's some other places over there?
Greenland,
Finland, Poland, whatever you want to call. Not from those places. The history book said the Jews were led away captive from Africa. That's what the Bible just said. Led away into slavery into all nations. Let's get some more on that. Give me the book, The Atlas of the Slave Trade. So this is a book, Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. David Eltis, David Richardson. They actually did the research and painstaking numbers game of what happened to the Jews that went into slavery from Africa. Go to the next image. So this is one of the images. We just read where Christ said what? The real Israelites, the real Jews will be led away into captivity into all nations. You've never seen that history of Jewish people. Go to the other image. When Christ said all nations, he meant it. North America, Central America, South America, Europe, Asia, Arabia, India, Madagascar, led away captive into all. Let's keep that up, and I want you to read Luke 21:24 once again.
Luke chapter 21 and verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
The Israelites, the Jews.
And shall be led away captive into all nations.
We read in Deuteronomy 28 of how the Israelites, the Jews, will be led away into captivity on slave ships. Go ahead.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
So now go keep that up and go back to Deuteronomy 28:68. Because Christ said they would be led away captive. Let's put it together how they were led away into captivity. Was it by plane or train or by what God said it would be? Read that.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
The Jews, the real Jews, were going to slavery again on ships. Just like Christ alluded to, he just left out the word ship. But you know what happens? You could drop that. What happens in the crafty counsel of those that hate God and have sworn to cut off the name of Israel, that they do not rise as a people again, they have included themselves into real Jew history. Pull up the video. And I want y'all to pay attention to this because we're about to destroy this. Pull up the video. Let's play that. We ain't got no sound. Run it back.
With the darker Jews, the 12 lost tribes of Israel, who we are, because we Jewish also.
Do your research on it. We have got our culture ripped from us. If we knew we were a culture and knew we were a people, the way the Jewish people know, it's not a race, it's a people.
First of all, we are Semite. We Jew. So I can't be anti-Semite.
Say blacks is Jews.
Blacks are Jews also.
We gotta say we love Jewish people then. We love Jewish people. We are great.
If you are Jew, why do you hate the extension of your own people? There's a growing consciousness amongst people of color in the Americas who likely descend from Israelite origins, brought as slaves from Africa. Unfortunately, due to generations of trauma, loss of identity, along with the almost total rejection of this conversation amongst mainstream Jewish spaces, many Black Hebrew Israelites get to the wrong conclusions and lash out at the Jewish people.
Pause it.
Many people.
So he says that he used a derogatory term called, you can drop, come on, y'all, stay with me, called Black Jew or Black Hebrew Israelites. He said they come to the wrong conclusion of who they are. Remember, he just said that. Go back to the video. Let's play it.
People around the world are on a journey to decolonize their identity, but too many are coming from a very colonized Christian framework, using mistranslations of mistranslated texts from the King James Bible and arriving to false conclusions that mainstream Jews stole their identity. To those watching this video that have never heard of this, it is a fact that a large percentage of the black slaves sold during the transatlantic slave trade were of Israelite tribes displaced in Africa.
Pause. Well, hold on. We just read out of the King James Bible that the Jews would be led away into slavery on ships. We saw the history books that said that they went into slavery from Africa. How is it that the King James Bible is a mistranslation and we confuse and we come to the wrong conclusion when him as a Jewish man just confirmed what we are saying reading from a King James Bible? This is the crafty counsel that they have taken to cut us off from being a nation. I want you to run it back a little bit so we can hear his words out of his mouth of what he said. Go ahead.
Were of Israelite tribes displaced in Africa. A large percentage of the black slaves sold during the transatlantic...
More. All right.
To false conclusions that mainstream Jews stole their identity. To those watching this video that have never heard of this, it is a fact that a large percentage of the black slaves sold during the transatlantic slave trade were of Israelite tribes displaced in Africa. Over 20% of the slave trade consisted of Africans capturing ethnic Igbos, which have an ancient tradition that they descend from the tribe of God, in what is today called Nigeria, and selling them to Europeans. It is not white people that went inland to take black slaves. It was other black African leaders who took certain groups of people in Africa and sold them to the whites on the coast.
Pause.
I mean,
it was not black people selling black people, as in the same race of black people. Give me that in Joel. The same way that the Egyptians, who are a black, dark-skinned people, were oppressing the Israelites, who are dark-skinned black people, which we clearly seen from the history books. It's the same thing that happened when they sold us to the white man from the west coast of Africa. The Egyptians are the sons of Ham. The Israelites, us, we are the sons of Shem, Semitics. Hamites sold Semites into slavery. Here it is. Joel chapter 3, and let's read verse 4.
Joel chapter 3 and verse 4. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon?
Those are two Hamitic nations. Nilotes today, Hamitic nations. Tyre and Zidon. Read on.
And all the coasts of Palestine.
And the Arabs had a hand in the slave trade, known as the sub-Sahara slave trade. Now jump down to verse 6.
Verse 6. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem.
So the Tyre, Zidon, and Palestinians, the Hamites and the Arabs got together and did what?
Have ye sold unto the Grecian?
They sold us to the white man. It was not the same race of dark-skinned people. It was Hamites selling Semites to the white man, Grecians, known as Caucasians today. Go ahead.
Hey, you know what's crazy about what he just said? He doesn't even realize what he just said.
Nah.
He said there was a large number of African Israelites sold into slavery. Well, when we read the curses, it said the Israelites were going to be sold into slavery for breaking God's commandments. Do the Jewish people fit that?
Right.
No, they do not.
And when God said about you would go into slavery on ships, it did not mention any other race. God is perfect. God makes no mistakes. But somehow, he only got 20% of the Israelites. And the rest of those 80% was all kind of other people that went on slave ships. But God only spoke to the Israelites. Let's go back to the video.
think about it. If there was one group to be chosen for enslavement, it fits the pattern that they were mainly from Israelite tribes in Africa, which historically and till this day are still being persecuted and killed. Our team is actively working on a documentary series called We Were Never Lost, where we are uncovering and documenting these stories to make us living today the last generation not to know who the lost tribes really were all along. Sometimes, even the most destructive rhetoric always contains a grain of truth. Yes, there is validity that many people of color in North and South America and the Caribbeans have Israelite ancestry. And there is an undeniable movement of return consciousness that is getting these descendants to wake up. However, when that is weaponized and aimed at attacking the other Jewish people who were also sold on slave ships to Rome,
He said that the Jewish people were sold on slave ships to Rome. Run it back just to make sure we heard him right.
At attacking the other Jewish people who were also sold on slave ships.
Run it back more. Come on, y'all back here. Go ahead.
Undeniable movement of return consciousness that is getting these descendants to wake up. However, when that is weaponized and aimed at attacking the other Jewish people who were also sold on slave ships to Rome and who have been persecuted and massacred for generations in Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, you get two Israelite groups fighting each other and blaming the other for the source of their suffering rather than reuniting and never actually holding accountable those who truly still benefit from our struggles.
Pause it. That is the crafty counsel. Oh, yeah, y'all can be that too, but we are too. Nah, that's not the truth at all. He said that Jewish people were sold into slavery on ships to Rome. How come we've never saw that on Google? We've never read that in any scholarly journal. We've never seen that. No, I didn't need it, because watch this. He said that Jewish people were sold into slavery on ships to Rome. Can you pull up those images? And let's see what the Jews look like that were sold into slavery in Rome. And let's see what we see. Oh, damn. That look like more brown, what you call black people today. Maybe I'm making that up. Let's see what the Jews that were sent into slavery to Rome painted of themselves and their ancestors. Can you scroll down or zoom in so we can read the fine print on the bottom? Go ahead.
Fresco from the Via Latina catacomb, Rome.
Hold on, where?
Rome.
Hold on, where's that at?
Rome.
Hold on, he just said that the Jews were sold on slave ships to Rome. So you mean to tell me once they got to Rome, when they were sold on slave ships, they painted people that did not look like them? Who is this that they painted? That was painted about 320 AD. Scroll over some. Who is that?
Abraham raises his sword to slay his son Isaac.
So you mean white Jewish people went to slavery on ships to Rome, got off the ship, drew a catacomb under the streets of Rome of their forefather Abraham and Isaac looking like black people? That makes absolutely no sense. Let's go to the other image of another fresco in Rome and see what it looks like. That looks just like who? Abraham once again and his son Isaac with the ram, and Isaac has the firewood. Zoom in on it so we can see the facial features and colors of Abraham that the Jews that were sold into Rome painted of their ancestors. My, oh my, how you can overturn lies with facts. There's another image too. Pull up the last image from a catacomb in Rome of Jews that was, that's another, we got another one. That's Samson of a catacomb in Rome. Remember what he just said? We were sold into slavery on ships to Rome too. It ain't adding up, is it? That's Samson slaying lions. Let's go to the other image of another catacomb. So let's zoom in on that real quick. Exit out over there. Now, we see an image right there, right? Man, that looks like a dark-skinned man with an afro. Let's scroll down a little bit and let's read what that says.
An original depiction of Jesus.
Of who?
Of Jesus.
In what? Circa 400 AD. Where was that painted at?
Roman catacombs.
Wait a minute. So he said that Jewish people went into slavery on ships and painted Jesus as black, Samson as black, Abraham and Isaac as black? Why would they do that? Unless they were not the people that went into slavery on ships at all to Rome, America, and all nations like the Bible just said. That's proof somebody's lying. Let's go to Colossians chapter 1. We about to wrap it up here. Colossians chapter 1. Let's read 25 and 26.
Colossians chapter 1 and verse 25. Whereof I am made a minister according to the dispensation of God, which is given to me for you to fulfill the word of God.
There's a dispensation. There's a certain amount of time that we all have to preach the word, the truth of God that's been given to us. Read on.
Even the mystery which hath been hid from ages.
The mystery is, who are the real Jews? Why did blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans go into slavery all over the world on ships? That's the mystery. Why did that happen to us and no one else on earth? There's no other history of other people going into slavery on ships. You can even look at the catacombs in Rome. They're painted of black people. You can't say that happened to Jewish people when the people on the walls are painted black. Go to Daniel chapter 9, verse 8. Let's get the answer. Let's unsolve the mystery of why it happened. Daniel chapter 9, verse 8.
Daniel chapter 9 and verse 8. O Lord, to us belongeth confusion of face.
Confusion of faces means what? You look at us, you don't even see the real Jews no more. We are confused in our face. Why? Keep reading.
To our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee.
That's why you can't tell who we are no more. We're unrecognizable to the world because God said he would make the remembrance of us to cease from among man until the last days when he begins to pour back his spirit on the earth and the real Jews start professing to the world, we are the people of God. That's why you see Kanye doing it. That's why today Kyrie Irving just posted on Twitter a book called From Hebrews to Negroes. That's why Ice Cube was saying it before he bowed out. That's why Nick Cannon was saying it before he was bowed out. That's why you see Israelites, real Jews all over the streets of America and all across the world now, because it's time for us to start waking up. God is revealing who we are to us. Verse 9 now.
Verse 9. To the Lord our God belong mercies and forgivenesses, though we have rebelled against him. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our God.
We rebelled against God. Keep reading.
To walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants, the prophets.
We rebelled against the laws of God is the reason why we went into slavery. We rebelled. Keep reading.
Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore, the curse is poured upon us.
Where's that curse found at? Read on.
And the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him.
That's the unsolving of the mystery. Why did blacks go into slavery? Why were Hispanics conquered here in America? Why were the native Indians' land taken over and they was put on concentration camps and call it reservations? Why are we still oppressed as a people? Why can't Kanye or formerly known as Kanye West speak out and say that he is a Semitic, that he's a Jew also? Is because we transgressed against God and the curse is pulled upon us. Let's go back to the curse real quick. Deuteronomy 28. We're going to jump through them real quick. Verse 16.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 16. Cursed shalt thou be in the field, and cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
Now jump to verse 41. Some of the curses. Keep going.
Verse 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
They will go into slavery. Read on. How? Go ahead.
All thy trees and fruit.
No, verse 68.
Verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
That's the curse. Keep reading.
By the way whereof I spake.
No, jump to verse 48 now.
Verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
When you got off the slave ships and you were sold into slavery. Go to verse 37.
Verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword.
Your name would be taken away from you. You would be called something else. Go to Leviticus chapter 28 or 26. Ain't no Leviticus 28, is it? Leviticus chapter 26. Let's read verse 14.
Leviticus chapter 26 and verse 14. But if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments.
If you won't do these commandments, jump down to verse 17 and 18.
Verse 17. And I will set my face against you, and he shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and he shall flee when none pursueth you.
We have enemies that hate us ruling over us, silencing our mouths right now. Read on.
And if ye will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins.
That's why we are oppressed more than any other people. Yeah, all people sin, but who is oppressed the most for their sins? The Israelites, the real Jews are. Now jump over to verse 37.
Verse 37.
Now check this out. Go ahead.
And they shall fall one upon another, as it were before a sword.
Christ said that in Luke chapter 21. Killed by the edge of the sword. Go ahead.
When none pursueth. And ye shall have no power to stand before your enemies.
Hold on. One of the curses is what? We would have what?
No power to stand before your enemies.
Hold on. What's happening to Kanye right now? Kanye was a billionaire and he has no power to stand before his enemies. All he can do is speak the word of God into the earth. And we the real Jews. They've taken away his contracts. They've taken away his money. But on the other hand, those that say they are Jews, they have the power to silence all those that say that they are the real Jews.
And Cap, so as we speaking about this, well, we got to understand that what's happening to Kanye, what happened to Kanye, is a modern day lynching.
Right.
This is exactly what we're seeing. So we think that slavery is over. No, it just has taken a different form where now it shows you if a black man decides to rise up, just like Christ did, just like Moses did, just like the other prophets did, then guess what? You're going to be lynched and you're going to be crucified for what you believe
made
in.
an example in front of all your people so no one else does it again. You know what the slavery's changed? The slavery has now become digital. Slavery's digital now. No more chains. Nah, it's just, oh, you got something to say? Gap dropped, Adidas dropped, Balenciaga dropped. You keep naming them. Drop. Slavery has become digital. Oh, your money? We don't want it here in our bank. Go back to Daniel chapter 9, verse 12. That's how you know who the real Jews are. They would have no power to fight back against their enemies when they speak truth to the power. Daniel 9, verse 12.
Daniel chapter 9 and verse 12. And he hath confirmed his words which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil.
A great evil, the slavery we are going through, the oppression. Go ahead.
For under the whole heaven hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem.
Daniel confirms that this only happened to one people on the face of the earth. Look into the history books. Do your research. Who are the people that are suffering the curses of God, sold into slavery, kids given away into captivity, their names changed, cursed in the city, cursed in the field? Who are those people that had to serve their enemies for food? Who are those people that are punished 7 times more for their sins? Who are those people that have no power to stand against their enemies, even though they speak the truth? It only happened to one people on the face of the earth. But how do you get right with God? Leviticus 26, verse 40. Go back. So how do we make it right with God so we can get our name back, our heritage back, our land back? How do we do that? Leviticus 26, verse 40 through 42.
Leviticus chapter 26 and verse 40. If they shall confess their iniquity, and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespass, which they trespass.
You have to confess that we are a sinful people. The things we do are not right. Abortion is not right. Out of wedlock sex is not right. What is it? Gangster music is not right. Murdering your brothers is not right. Hating one another is not right. Sunday worship is not right. Christianity is not right. White Jesus is not right. Read on.
Which they trespassed against me, and that also they have walked contrary unto me.
They have not done what I commanded them to do. Read on.
And that I also have walked contrary unto them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies.
Into America, Central America, South America, the diaspora of the West Africa, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, the Congo, the Dominican, what's that called? The Democratic Congo, South Africa, North Africa. Those are the lands of our enemies. Go ahead.
If then their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they then accept of the punishment of their iniquity.
We have not accepted that we have sinned against God. We rebel continually against God. Keep going.
Then will I remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham will I remember.
He will remember that he has always chosen us from the beginning. And when he does that, he's going to do what? Read on.
And I will remember the land.
He will give us back our land, our true homeland. Our homeland is not the islands. It's not the Caribbeans. It's not America. It's not Alabama. It's not California. It's not Asia. It's not Nigeria. It's not South Africa. It's not those places. Our homeland is Israel. Jump down to verse 44.
Verse 44. And yet for all that, when they be in the land of their enemies, I will not cast them away. Neither will I abhor them, to destroy them utterly, and to break my covenant with them, for I am the Lord their God.
That's why you see the Spirit of God rising up in the blacks of America, and the Hispanics of America, and some Native Indians of America. You see these entertainers are all over the internet. Yeah, we the Israelites, we the real Jews. And then they get shut down. Why? Because God has not cast us away. The Spirit of God still dwells in us and is calling us to acknowledge our true race of who we are as a people and what's required of us. Keep reading.
But I will, for their sakes, remember the covenant of their ancestors.
Of our who?
Of their ancestors.
So it matters where you come from. It matters who you are. You just can't be a human being on earth. God says, I will remember the covenant with their ancestors. Go ahead.
Whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the heathen, that I might be their God. I am the Lord.
Give me that in John chapter 8, verse 32. We saw all the historical books, the paintings, the images of the people that were brought out of Egypt, the Semitic brown people that are known as the Israelites that came out of Egypt. We saw those images. That's us. Give me that in John chapter 8, verse 32.
John chapter 8 and verse 32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
Read it again for him.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
The truth of real Jew proof and what God requires of us as a people will set you free mentally first, spiritually, and ultimately when our King Christ returns to redeem us from the land of our enemies, it will physically set us free. So I hope you learned something. You've been edified. You gleaned something from this, because this has been real Jew proof for Kanye fans. Shalom.
We used to scream black power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold. From Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.